Okay, so on this video here, I want to go over some of the common problems with vacuum cleaners. Now, most common problem that I see all the time is a clogged vacuum cleaner. Now, here are a few steps that you may want to take that you can easily do yourself before you take it to somebody like myself to fix it, or just opt to throw it away and buy a new vacuum cleaner. I guarantee you that this will most likely cost nothing, and if it does cost anything, I mean, most of the time it'll cost like $2, okay, or less. Now, first thing that you're going to want to do, and this is just with a common vacuum cleaner that most people have, that has your hose on board and your tools and everything, is you're going to want to check a few things. Now, the first area you're going to want to check is your hose. I'm going to look in here, and I just did this just for demonstration purposes, but obviously if there's any blockages, you're going to want to remove that to open up airflow. And if there's anything down deeper in the hose, you can take like a broom handle and push that clog out the other side. Hold the hose as straight as you can, push a broom handle through one end, and push that clog out the other side. Now, pull any clogs or debris out of that area, and then look down your hose, make sure it's clear, and you can also push like a lint brush through here and make sure that there's no clogs or debris. Typically what will clog a vacuum cleaner is, number one, debris that is too large to be picked up by a vacuum cleaner, or number two, something gets lodged in there, and gets caught, sideways or whatever, and so that creates an object to start catching hair and stuff that's coming through. And so, like, for example, maybe you sucked up a toothpick or something, it's lodged in there, this way. So imagine my finger is the toothpick, so it's in there on an angle. And so any like hair or other debris or anything like that will start building up and building up and building up. And so that is a common area. Common thing that can happen. You also want to check the inlets here. Now, this is where the hose goes in to go down to the floor. You want to pull out anything. And then this is the inlet where it goes into the machine, into the bag or the canister. So you're going to pull any debris out of there. And you want to check that there's nothing else in there. And then you can put your hose back on. Now, some hoses on some vacuum cleaners, you actually have to unscrew a couple Phillips head screws, and so you would need a Phillips screwdriver to unscrew those screws and pull it off. but some of them don't have that. I will say the one vacuum cleaner brand that I think is one that I know for sure you'll probably need a screwdriver is Bissell. I know that the Bissell Power Force vacuum cleaners tended to have an adapter that's screwed on with screws, at least the older ones. I'm not too sure. This one in particular is a Hoover wind tunnel. But most of them nowadays are going to have this notch setup where you're going to line up the two notches with the slots, push it down, and then you're going to rotate it clockwise to lock it in and counterclockwise to unlock it. And it's just like a quarter of a turn, really. And it's really easy to do. I'm not even putting all that much force. You just got to grip it enough to where you can get traction and everything. You're going to put that hose back on. And I would check every part of the air path. So the hose that comes from the floor head all the way up, I would check all the way through. Because anywhere that the air path is can get blocked. Now, the other place you're going to want to check is the bottom. Now, there's a few things that you can do here. Let me try and get this in a position where you can see it. So you're going to lay your vacuum cleaner down, in this case, and most vacuum cleaners are going to be something like this. You're going to have a bottom plate, and you're going to have between 4 and 6 screws. Some vacuum cleaners have 4 screws on the bottom. Some vacuum cleaners have 3 screws on the bottom. Some vacuum cleaners have 5 screws, 6 screws. It just depends. This one in particular has 4, so you're going to have screws on each corner. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3. Make sure this isn't shot here. And 4. And what you're going to do is you're going to loosen those screws. Now, most of the time they'll be Phillips, but sometimes they're Torx screws. And they're not always easy to get to. And this is why I recommend vacuum cleaners that are simple, because the simpler the vacuum cleaner is, the easier it's going to be to get into and do this kind of work. So you're going to unscrew all 4 screws here. And I'm going to remove them. And I know some people have, higher end machines like Kirby vacuum cleaners and everything. I do too, but I know that most people have either never heard of those machines, or they can't afford those machines, or they're just too heavy for them. And so most people are going to have vacuum cleaners like this. And that is okay. They do the job. So I show you how to do some basic maintenance and troubleshooting and simple repairs on mini vacuum cleaners. You know, it's not just one brand or one type. Although I do personally prefer bagged vacuum cleaners. Some people have bagless vacuum cleaners. Now you're going to take that plate off, and wherever the air path is, you're going to check for any blockages in here, like that. And once again, you're going to take a brush or a lint brush or some kind of broom handle or something and push through and make sure that nothing else is clogged. And while I'm in here, this is your beater bar here, your roller brush, and here's your belt. Now you want to make sure that this belt is in good condition. Your brush roller is a main component of starting the process of picking up dirt on your carpet. If this doesn't spin or barely spins, then you're not going to get good performance. Most people think that the suction of a vacuum cleaner is what matters the most. It does not. The suction is the third most important part of a vacuum cleaner. The first thing, when you're talking carpet, this brush is going to start loosening up the debris so that way it can brush it up into this chamber, and then the suction pulls it in. So you want to make sure that the belt that drives the brush is not broken. If it's broken, it will be obvious. But it doesn't necessarily have to be broken. Sometimes it can just be very old and very stretched out to where it doesn't allow the brush to spin. So I'm going to pull this out and pull the brush out of the belt. Now, the other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that it's free of hair and string and everything, because that will diminish the performance as well. And lastly, you want to hold the ends of the brush here, and you want to spin it, and you want to make sure it spins freely like that. If it barely spins or barely turns, your bearings have an issue, and you're going to need to either oil the bearings or buy a new brush entirely. Also, if these bristles are very short and there's like not a whole lot of length, like these yellow bristles are like super short, then that brush is worn out and it's not making contact with the carpet, and you need a new brush. New roller brushes can be had anywhere from $10 all the way up to like $20 to $30 depending on your model. For this particular one, I believe brush rollers you can find on eBay for like $15 or so, what I paid. And then here's your belt. Now belts do need to be changed on a fairly regular basis, and it doesn't have to be broken to need to be changed. If it's worn pretty good, if there's like cracking or it's very dry or there's not a whole lot of stretch to it, then the belt needs to be replaced. Now, you want to make sure that, it's free of debris and everything else while you're down in here. And then again, make sure that that air path is clear also. Next, you're going to take your belt. If you need to replace your belt, look, in your manual or look online for your specific vacuum cleaner model and find out what belt it takes. This model is a Hoover Wind Tunnel Model U5491900. And this model in particular takes the Hoover Style 160 belt. So you can get them pretty cheap online on eBay, Amazon, pretty much anywhere. There's, vacuum cleaner part sites online, or you can go to a local vacuum cleaner shop and they might have it there for you in stock. They most likely will. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to put it around a pin in the back here. It's a metal motor shaft there. And you're going to put it in here. Now this belt is still good, so I'm not going to replace it. But you would do it the same way. Now, when you have a new belt, it's going to be very tight. But that's a good thing because you need that tension to be able to spin this brush. So, in this case, I'm going to get it in there. And this one has a keyed little slot on this side where the roller brush is. Do you see that? So I got to turn it just enough so it can slide in and it locks in. Because you don't want these end caps to move when it is in place. You want the brush itself to be turning, not the ends. And then you're going to be rotating manually the brush to line the belt up and make sure it's spinning freely and that it's not caught anywhere. Because if it is caught and it gets pinched and you turn this thing on, you can snap that belt immediately, and you don't want to do that. Because then you'll have to repeat the process again, get another belt, and it's going to be inconvenient. Now you're going to put your base plate back on. Should be little notches in the front that it lines up. And you're going to put your bottom plate back on. Now you're going to replace your screws. And screw them back in. And just snug them up. They don't need to be crazy tight. They just need to be snug enough to where it will stay on while you're using your machine. That one's in. These steps will save you a lot of money. It will save you hundreds of dollars. Because even just a regular vacuum cleaner, from Amazon, Walmart, wherever, like this, can cost anywhere from $60 to $70 all the way up to, $200, $300 or more. And we all know that there are vacuum cleaners that are upwards of $1,000. Not cheap. So this will save you a lot of money. Now again, you want to make sure that the brush is free of hair and debris. If you have long hair in the house, make sure that you cut off all that hair, get rid of it, and you should be good to go. Now, after that, should be good. These are simple repairs and maintenance that an average consumer can do themselves pretty easily before you have to get help or just buy a new vacuum cleaner altogether. And here's your bag door. Now, me personally, I do prefer bagged vacuum cleaners, and I do recommend them because they tend to not clog as easily, and they tend to perform better in my experience. Now, you also want to check the bag and make sure it's not too full. Most bags will have like a maximum fill line, but if they don't, wherever the bag connects to the tube, you want to stop filling it right underneath that. So this bag is fairly new, so I'm not going to worry about that. But you also want to make sure that you check the filters in your machine. There should be one under the bag, down in here. Want to make sure that that's clean and free of debris and dust, which there shouldn't be anything on there if you have a bagged vacuum cleaner, because if the bag is the main filter, it's going to stop 99% of everything that goes through there. And that's one great thing about bagged vacuum cleaners, is they tend to keep most of the stuff out of the machine, out of the motor, thus reducing the amount of clogs and thus making the machine last longer. So you're going to put that back on. Now you also want to check any filters that are after the motor, which typically that would be any filter where the air is forced out of the machine at the end of its journey. So this, you can change these filters for really cheap. I would change these filters once a year. Every filter and area where air travels is very important to keep clean and changed, because keeping the entire air path clear maximizes performance, extends the life of your vacuum cleaner, and overall just makes it a better experience. Now, if you're still having issues and you've done all those things, then you most likely have a bigger problem, and might have to dig into it deeper. But if you're not comfortable with that, you can always do more research online, or take it to somebody who really knows what they're doing. Um, I've done way more than that. I've basically rebuilt vacuum cleaners before. I've put new motors in vacuum cleaners before. I've put new cords in vacuum cleaners before. So I've done some of this stuff, and I wouldn't say it's easy, but if you know what you're doing, you can do it. But if you don't know what you're doing, or you're just not comfortable, then there's no shame in, taking it to somebody who does know what they're doing. So I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching. Bye.